course, we want to have a separate training dedicated to local communities. And we see that as a gap. We were also expecting the materials from, I think CI will be coming up with a training of trainers material within this year. And I think, well, I've seen the presentation of Luis. Those are the materials that we will be needing, and once it's available, we have already identified local leaders who we will provide these materials. And that's it. We really have to work around the limited resources, work with partners who are already doing similar work, and see how we can complement some of their existing activities.
Other comments?
I just wanted to say that I was really pleased to see in talk, the one before the last, there were lots of pictures of children learning. I understand that this workshop is not really about that, but I just wanted to emphasize the importance of involving children into these trainings, because we know how quickly they grow up in developing countries, and I think it's crucial that we involve them as much as possible and teach them as much as possible about REDD and climate change and sustainable living. And another point I wanted to raise about collaboration, I work for the Jane Goodall Institute, and I worked with the DRC for a little while. And even though obviously the Jane Goodall Institute is for saving chimpanzees, one of their major programs is family planning. And I saw women gathering, many women gathering in family planning sessions. And I think, for example, there is a great collaboration with health NGOs where these women gathering for family planning session, and at the same time they can be trained about REDD and climate change issues. So these maybe not so traditional collaboration with another conservation NGO or a health NGO can be very efficient.
Thanks. The first thing is quick promotion, but I promise I have no commercial interest in this. But we haven't talked much about video, which I think can be a very effective tool for communication. There's an NGO called Life Mosaic, which has a website with links on it to short films that are made. They use cartoons and interviews with communities, and they have them in Indonesian, English, and Spanish, I think, possibly also French. And they have a series of short films that looks at understanding REDD, understanding the rights issues and other issues, which might be a useful resource. The other thing I wanted to ask was to come back to the evaluation question that was mentioned this morning, because I get the feeling, obviously a lot of this work is ongoing and it's very new, but I wondered, like with all training, do we have any idea of the impact in terms of people's behaviour and adoption of, or ability to understand and then apply what they're learning in the training from any of these examples? Thanks.
Luis, did you want to say something? I've got two of them. I don't have time. Sorry. Did you want to say something about the CAP methodology or some of the tools to evaluate the training impacts?
Yes, just we talked a little about that in the morning, and it's this first approach is a first stage where you give the methodology to the trainer, but then how does the trainer replicate and how many people they replicate and what's the impact? I think that's the next step. It's a process that is not only doing it after we do the training, because it takes a time, and also this is something really important in terms of the theory of change. How long do you need, how much time do you need, and what kind of support do you need to be effective and have a good every case is different, but for our case, we were really interested to see this kind of feedback in 3 areas. It was basically knowledge, attitudes, and practices. So we talked a little about that, and not just go beyond about what you learn, but also there are any behavior or any attitudes that could help to understand what was previously not understood, and also practices in terms of how information sharing is happening. Besides that, I would just one comment on those conclusions, limiting factors and opportunities is to make the link and the importance of how this training, or not training, these shared learning experiences are really key to stakeholder engagement, and how this helps improve and promotes the full and effective participation in all these structures and all these processes that are driven. I'm talking right now about RED, but it's also about adaptation planning and other issues related to reducing vulnerabilities, and I think is also facing climate change. I don't know if there's any additional comments. Jad?
Yo creo que las preguntas son muy valiosas para ir profundizando en esta reflexión. Yo creo que hay un aspecto que identificamos como una limitante para fortalecer la participación de los pueblos indígenas, y es la escala de los procesos de capacitación o entrenamiento. Cuando digo la escala, una cuestión puede ser la escala conceptual, y otra cosa puede ser la escala de cobertura que tienen los programas, porque las necesidades son muy grandes y los recursos son muy limitados. Entonces, también académicamente o profesionalmente o institucionalmente somos muy ambiciosos en la escala. Entonces, terminamos abarcando mucho y, como decimos en Centroamérica o Latinoamérica, apretando un poco. Entonces, eso yo creo que es una limitante. Una segunda limitante es nosotros también necesitamos revitalizar la participación local y la formación que pueden hacer, o los liderazgos que pueden facilitar en materia de conocimiento los actores de adentro, de las comunidades, de los territorios. Y muchas veces, por mucho que tenemos buena voluntad, ya tenemos casi la decisión política de hacerlo, nos hace falta ejercitarlo, practicarlo, de que estamos en un nivel ancestral. Entonces, esa escalera a veces limita un empoderamiento, una continuidad, una réplica de los procesos, post-cursos, post-entrenamientos, post-talleres, y ese tipo, mi experiencia particular, que ha sido una limitante. Y el otro aspecto es, desafortunadamente en Latinoamérica, no sé cómo es en África, ¿verdad? Me disculpo, no conozco la experiencia en África, pero en Latinoamérica todos los procesos están desafortunadamente con mucha mediación política, de partidos políticos. Entonces, terminan incidiendo estas decisiones políticas en la forma de cómo se eligen, cómo se seleccionan sitios, cómo se priorizan actores que pueden entrar a los procesos académicos, de formación, de ese tipo de cuestiones. Y por mucho que desde la cooperación, desde las organizaciones de sociedad civil tratamos, a veces no necesariamente logramos articular con los actores pertinentes, porque hay mucha mediación política en estos escenarios sociales de desarrollo. Entonces es una limitante. Y podríamos mencionar una lista más, pero pues, creo que por ahí dejaría una reflexión de contexto cuando estamos haciendo estos procesos. Y ¿qué ha funcionado bien para aumentar la formación con pertinencia? Y yo creo que un aspecto que ha funcionado en la experiencia particular de Centroamérica, y lo vimos en Guatemala, lo vimos en Honduras, es que logramos conectar los procesos académicos con otros actores que estaban cooperando con recursos financieros y asistencia técnica en la línea de formación que estábamos haciendo. Esto permitía que el proceso no se quedara en un curso, sino que la gente lo empezaba a vivir, a implementar, a hacer otra cosa ya de lo mismo que se había discutido, pero era un punto de partida. Y esto hacía que la gente también se motivara porque sentían que tenía pertinencia, que tenía aplicación. Entonces hay que tratar de vincular los procesos académicos que hacemos de entrenamiento con otros programas que están ocurriendo en el territorio, hacerlo en sinergia para fortalecerlos.
Other comments? May I make a comment? Switch from. I would just like to speak back to a comment that Ricky raised earlier about funding. It's kind of related to that. I think that an important limiting factor can be that too often capacity building events or trainings are not part of a long-term program. They can be related to a specific project. There may be one training in a community, which in some cases, one training is sometimes worse than no trainings because you are setting up an expectation of continued learning that is not fulfilled. It's a challenge related to funding because frequently that's a result of working within donor project cycles. But I think that to overcome a limiting factor, it's important, wherever possible, that all trainings are part of a longer-term capacity building program that has many facets, that also brings in training for the different groups in the community, that also focuses on achievements like having materials adopted by the education department, so that it's a much broader effort than a one-time training related to a project activity. The other comment I'd like to make also is related to what our information from Zhong Ying from Thailand, and that is the training of other stakeholder groups, because especially in issues of climate change, communities are not dealing with these issues alone. There are many stakeholders that are involved in this. And it's very important that all of those stakeholder groups are receiving training. Frequently, local government can receive the least training. So I think it's very important to look at capacity building sometimes more broadly than one particular stakeholder group. But how are you creating capacity for dialogue among those different groups who need to work together to make decisions? So I think that also can be a limiting factor, that training is not scaled out broadly enough to include all of the decision-making groups who need to understand and work together. Thank you.
Any more comments out there or add-ons to that?
Coming to the end of our creative abilities for the day. I'm coming to the end of my ability to turn on a microphone. Any closing thoughts from you, Joe?
For this particular session or for the whole day?
For the session.
Yeah, I think the last points you made are really very valid, and they link closely to what Jared was saying. The ambitions we have of reaching vast amounts of people and having an impact at scale are really constrained by, I guess, the modalities or the mechanisms to actually do that sort of training, which can't be just donor-funded projects by various organizations. They have to be embedded within the education system, embedded within other types of rural development processes, which are working more broadly than just RED. I all aspects of people's livelihoods, from water and sanitation, public health, planning, family planning, as you mentioned, and so forth. I think we're all going to be challenged if we're not able to get many more people talking about these subjects at a much earlier age in people's formative lives in schools, essentially, and that oftentimes education is not funded. One thing we haven't really talked about is that donors tend to fund capacity building and training when it's aimed at adults and so forth. They don't tend to fund a lot of schoolwork. They don't tend to, this is my experience, it's harder for us as an organization to raise money to design education programs to work within education systems within other countries. It's not really seen as a priority, or else it's seen as someone else's responsibility. So I think it is a real challenge to get into the schools and embed this stuff into the educational processes of school systems.
Okay, thank you. This last, I would like to introduce myself because the count is almost a count 10 presentation, and the count today. I want to ask you the first presenter left us early. Now I know one and they respond to my question, but it's okay. Just want to share on this comment about this maybe the second one, that how we can work well on the training. I'm Swandi, I'm from the Cambodia, UNDP Cambodia office. I'm not experienced on the development of training material working directly with the local community indigenous people, but we are now struggling how to engage those NGO or civil society to provide this kind of service to the local community and these people. We are also running off the development of red strategy, national red strategy. We are running off to how to engage indigenous people in sitting in the policy making the world now, because we want to. First, we know that unless those are eligible to sit in the high levels of this body, then they can represent to the local community and also with the disabled people. That is one of the challenges to help them, our local community and indigenous people involved very participatory and actively in the learning or any training process, etc. So starting from the training, what I observed from visiting some of the projects in the ground of the community, we see that we start from the beginning of the daily needs first before we integrate of the long-term knowledge and awareness on the climate change, on whatever is relevant. For example, the people in our case facing with how to plant the flood, the rice, to adapt with the flooding situation and to adapt with the drought situation. So when we address to this point of situation, then we can engage them involved in the designing the plan, designing of the how to adapt to the climate change situation, flood and drought. So those people coming to join that, we can introduce the new of the training we want to provide about the climate change, water reserve, global water system, etc., etc. Another one, we also engage the kind of the religion. Religion is also important. For example, in one community, the Buddhist man, the leader of the Buddhist man is a group of the community leader, forest covering of the around the 18,000 hectares. So it's very strong in terms of build capacity to the local community involved in the learning, whatever the activity, the patrolling, or involving in now even currently now they do the the carbon selling and carbon marketing, so they also participated. So they believe on the man on the religion provides this kind of thing. So we engage the top of the man to provide the training on what is the right about, what is carbon training, so then the man can continue further for the TOT kind of that. Also the group of the community policy leader, like especially the women of community policy leader, very active and they can engage for the build capacity to order the member within the community. So this is the kind of what I observed on the effective use the kind of the material, because even we have the good material, good of the tool, but if they are not interested, they are not followed, it's not effective. I think that's it.
Any final comments?